夠人開會。
Let's call the meeting to order.
咁你今日咧其實就都係上一次傾嘅嘢咧都繼續。
This is a continuation of our discussion last time. First, let's invite the administration team to join us.
即係我睇到咧，即係其實我哋今日傾嘅。
From what I can see, actually what we are going to discuss today will be very similar to what we did last time. But then in terms of the minutes of the meeting, can we be given a copy earlier next time? Because for the minutes of the last meeting, I haven't got them yet. I think we need to look at what transpired at the discussion last time and also the administration's response and so on. Well, we'll try, because last time we felt that the discussion was not in-depth enough. That's why we needed to have one more meeting. And if you were here last time, you should have known what was discussed at the last meeting. So we'll try to see if we can meet your request, to see if the Secretary can have the minutes ready earlier. All right, thank you, Chairman. We are here to discuss the item that we discussed last time. Is about the traffic impact assessment of the planning application for minor relaxation of development intensity of the WKCD site. And please do not repeat what you have already asked last time unless you'd like to know a bit more. So WKCD authorities representatives, can you walk us through the paper? Yes, Helena Wong. Chairman, I submitted a letter about the delay of the XRL project and its impact on the WKCD. So I wonder if we are going to discuss that today, or are we going to have another meeting to discuss that? Well, we don't intend to discuss that today because it's already very congested, even though I did not grow up in Kowloon, but then every time I go there, it's a big problem. So with the WKCD commissioning, as members said last time, we are all very concerned about this. With regard to the XRL issue, the subcommittee on railways is going to have a meeting on the 5th of May because we don't know the impact. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. And if things change after the discussion, then that's not good. So maybe we should wait and see to see if the delay is very extended, because in any case our facilities will only be completed in 2018-19, and we will only be able to complete or commission the facilities after the completion of the XRL. So in any event, judging from what's been disclosed in the press, the impact has yet to be seen. That's why I passed on your letter to the WKCD authority asking for a written response. So why don't we wait for the response and also the discussion at the subcommittee on railways before we take the matter further, because not many members are from that district, and I'm afraid we don't have a very good understanding of the issue. Chairman, it's not about where we live. I understand that the subcommittee on railways is going to discuss that anyway, but then supposedly we are responsible for monitoring the development of the WKCD, and if there is any delay, because it involves some 14 hectares of land, and if they are not able to hand it over to the authority in time, then I'd like to know, will the development project be affected as well? All right, I think we need further information before we discuss that further. So let's focus on the issue today, that is the traffic impact assessment by the further relaxation of the development intensity of the WKCD project. So can I invite the representatives from the WKCD to walk us through that? Chairman, as you said at the last meeting concerning the traffic impact on the WKCD, members were very concerned. That's why I have asked them to submit further information on the project. Thank you. So I can I now defer to Dr. Chen? Yes, we have also asked the consultant to come along with us because we understand that members are very concerned about the traffic impact of the minor relaxation on development density and also how we are going to address the problem. With regard to pedestrian flow and our projections, and also if there are major events being held in the district, how we are going to disperse the crowds afterwards. So on the 21st of March, together with the planning application, we have already submitted the papers to the Town Planning Board, and according to the paper with regard to the WKCD road network, as we should be able to cope with the increased GFA, the traffic impact will be acceptable, and that would already cover the related traffic during the construction phase. With regard to the pedestrian flow, there's another study suggesting that it should be able to cope with the disbursement of the crowds after any major events, and within 30 minutes the authority should be able to disperse the crowds after the event. So I'll defer to the authority or the consultant who will give you the details. All right, who is going to do the presentation? Mr. Ho? Yes, good afternoon, Chairman and members. So with regard to the TIA that we have done on the planning application for minor relaxation of development intensity of the WKCD, so I'll first do the presentation and then we can discuss that later. First of all, with regard to the minor relaxation of the development density, that would not affect the original concept that there should be a vehicle-free environment and also a people-based approach. Well, for the vehicular access, they would be below grade, and there would also be pick-up and drop-off points. And basically, at grade is a vehicle-free environment, and it's only for pedestrians. If you look at the entire WKCD, we actually have three access and exit points, and I'll go through them one by one. First, the Canton Road access left in, left out is an access point at grade, and then second is the East Gate lay-by. So we can call that the East Gate is the East Gate lay-by. And the third one is Lin Cheung Road access to the west of Austin Road, and it's an underground access. Fourth, Austin Road West near the western side, so it's a lay-by, and once again we would call that the West Gate lay-by. For the fifth and the sixth one is Austin Road West, Nga Cheung Road at grade, and also Nga Cheung Road elevated. So there are two roundabouts here. At present, Nga Cheung Road is split into the at grade level and also the elevated level, and therefore vehicles can go into WKCD through the at grade level, and also they can come out from the elevated exit. And then seventh is the Austin Road Bridge, and it will be connected to the Austin Road elevated Nga Cheung Road roundabout. And also on Nga Cheung Road West there is another exit point, so that's for the opera or the C3 Center use. So you can see that the yellow part on the layout plan is the so-called underground access, so that will be connected to the 7 access points, so that would also help divert the traffic. As regards this is the CKR, the Central Kowloon route. In 2009, the Transport Department already looked at the WKCD, and a transport study was conducted, and the TD also made a number of road improvement recommendations or road traffic improvement measures in order to meet the future demand. And mainly, the purpose of the improvements is to increase the capacity at the junctions that is on the West Kowloon reclamation and also on the West Kowloon route. The connectivity will also be strengthened. With regard to all the proposals, according to my understanding, the Highways Department is implementing these works. And I can also highlight some of the main areas. Austin Road, Lin Cheung Road underpass. In fact, this is to ease the traffic on Austin Road and Lin Cheung Road. Another one, Canton Road, Austin Road West road widening works, and the purpose is to increase the capacity at the junction, and that would also help ease the traffic at Lin Cheung Road and Austin Road West. Another one, that's Nga Cheung Road elevated, connecting with the Western Harbour crossing, and there is going to be a new link road, and the purpose is to increase the WKCD and also the Kowloon Station's superstructure property development, so that that would also the connectivity to the Western Harbour crossing will be enhanced. Another one is Hoi Po Road to West Kowloon Highway. There will be a new link road, and the purpose is again to ease the traffic on Lin Cheung Road northbound. Another one, West Kowloon Highway southbound to Lin Cheung Road. It's a new link road, and that's to ease Lin Cheung Road southbound traffic.
According to the new TIA we conducted, for the whole of WKCD during AM peak hours, there will be 1,332 small car units entering the area. As for the PM peak hours, 2,470. When you look at this map, you can see different districts in West Kowloon and how traffic from these districts will enter the WKCD site. For example, from Kwun Tong and East Kowloon, you can go through Central Kowloon route and then Lin Cheung Road, and then you can enter WKCD. As for Lantau and Northwest NT, Chain 1, etc., then you will mainly pass through West Kowloon Highway, Lin Cheung Road, and the newly added link connected to Ah Cheong Road, and then you can enter WKCD. And this is about WKCD traffic generation. During AM hours, there will be 1,136 units leaving the whole of WKCD. As for the PM peak hours, we expect that 2,074 units will be leaving WKCD. This map shows the routes that cars can take when they leave WKCD. For example, if you want to go to East Kowloon, you can use the Central Kowloon route. If you want to go to the Western Harbour crossing, then you can use the newly elevated Ah Cheong Road section to go directly to the Western Harbour crossing. Then you do not have to go through other junctions. This is a more direct route, and it will have less impact on other junctions. And if you want to go to Lantau or NT-Northwest, in the past you only had Lin Cheung Road, but now, as I said just now, there will be a newly added link to Ah Cheong Road, and then you can go through Hoi Bo Road, and then through a new link you can join the West Kowloon Highway northbound road. And also we have made a comparison. That is after the minor relaxation of the development density, we have made a comparison of the two schemes. Now if you look at the table during AM peak hours, now because now the plot ratio is increased, we expect that there will be an extra 944 PCU per hour. As for PM peak hours, there will be an additional 429 PCUs. So we had an original TIA. Now we have a new one, and we have assessed all the relevant junctions, including Austin Road, Jordan Road, Ah Cheong Road, etc. So this is the scope of the present TIA. Now there will be extra traffic flow. So by the year 2031, we have made calculations for different junctions. And these are the junction reserve capacity assessment and peak hours. So for this slide and the next one, they are the reserve capacities of the two TIAs. For junctions further away from WKCD, the impact is minimal. For junctions that are closer, for example, Austin Road and Lin Cheung Road, the change may be more significant. However, for all the junctions, you can see that the figures are positive. That means that by 2031, there is still reserve capacity, and the projected traffic demand can be met. So in conclusion, now we have increased the GFA and the plot ratio, and now the assessment results demonstrate that the planned road network with WKCD presented in the approved DA could accommodate the induced traffic to be generated by the additional GFA. And the construction-related traffic generated during the construction of the WKCD can also be accommodated on the adjacent road network. When the WKCD actually comes into operation, this is actually a very small figure, and we have also looked at the construction period, and we made another assessment concerning the traffic generated. The road network in the adjacent areas can accommodate these traffic volume generated. On this map, you can see that WKCD is located at a strategic position. There are 3 MTR stations in its vicinity, and there are also 2 public transport exchanges. And this area will accord priority to pedestrian and public transport. Now, if you look at this map, you can see these 3 MTR stations: Kowloon MTR, West Kowloon Terminus, and Austin MTR. And there will be pedestrian walkways connecting to these stations. And at Kowloon MTR station, there is a public transport interchange. At the CFT, there is also a PTI. As for the WHT, there are also a lot of bus stops. There will also be 4 public transport drop-off areas. One of them is at the East Gate, Lei Bai. and the other two are situated at the west gates lay-by. One of them is closer to the center of the WKCD site, and the other one is close to the western end of this WKCD site. There will be a larger scale public transport drop-off areas and is close to the mega performance venue. As for pedestrian network, well, the whole deck will be a vehicle-free area. And also we have an avenue and a waterfront promenade. These are the east-west corridors of the WKCD site. As for WKCD's connection with the adjacent neighborhoods, we have made a number of proposals concerning pedestrian connections. Let me start from the east. In the eastern part, you can see that there is a proposed footbridge. It will be connecting the China Ferry Terminal and the Kowloon Park. And there is another one crossing Canton Road West, Austin Road West. These are pedestrian subways. And also there will be a subway connecting Austin MTR stations. There will also be a landscape deck connecting Austin MTR station. As for the XRL, West Kowloon Terminus, there will be a pedestrian deck connecting to the WKCD. There will be a footbridge connecting to ICC, another one crossing over WHC, and there will be a footbridge connecting to Kowloon MTR station. As for the performance venues, when the performances end, you have to disperse the crowds. And WKCD is actually at a very good location because it's close to 3 MTR stations, and also is close to 2 public transport interchanges. A large area is also reserved next to the mega performance venue, and that will be a major pick-up and drop-off area. There are footbridges or decks or subways connecting to these MTR stations and PTIs. So the vehicles would not be fighting for space with pedestrians. So this map shows the forecast pedestrian flows. Now, if all the performances at different venues end at the same time, about 33,000 spectators would have to leave WKCD at the same time, and that has to be done within 30 minutes. So we have made an estimation of the pedestrian flows. Now, there are different footbridges, pedestrian decks and subways, and this is the operational performance of pedestrian facilities during dispersal. We have made an analysis. As for the LOS, it's set at C. From a transport point of view, this is an acceptable level. So on the whole, according to our analysis, the pedestrian forecast and crowd dispersal analysis for year 2013 indicates that planned pedestrian and vehicular facilities can accommodate surged demand during major events in the WKCD, and visitors can be dispersed within 30 minutes. Chairman, this is my presentation. Thank you. Transport Department, do you want to add anything? Transport Department, Mr. Ip Kun Kang. On the 24th of last month, we received an application from the WKCDA. We have looked at their new TIA, and on the whole, we agree with them. That is now they are having this minor relaxation of plot ratio, and for the traffic generated, their projection is agreeable to us. The extra traffic generated is minimal, and it will not have a huge impact on the traffic in the surrounding areas. And the number of vehicles increased during peak hours would only be about 400, and they are distributed on different roads. Most of them, that is 40% of the vehicles, will enter West Kowloon Highway very soon, so it will not have major impact on the junctions in the surrounding areas, in particular the junctions that are further away from the WKCD site. So we agree with their conclusion. Does anyone want to supplement? WKCD representatives, before member asks questions, I would like to ask 2 questions. First of all, now you are going to have a C3 center, that is slide 2, at the Canton Road entrance. So when people get out from the C3 center, if they want to go to Hong Kong Island, then they would have to go to the Kowloon MTR station, or they have to take a cross-harbor tunnel bus. So how long do they have to walk? That is from 1 to 5 and 6. What is the length? This is question number 1. And for your 2IA, well, I just asked 2 questions. For this 2IA, have you looked at buses, taxis, and minibuses, ferries? Now, have you looked at these modes of transport? How are they going to help disperse the crowd? Why don't we have the information here? Yes, we have made an estimation. We have taken that into account. But how come we are not told how many % of the spectators will be taking buses to leave? How many of them will be taking ferries? How many of them will be taking railways? Now for this paper, well, actually we haven't seen the information in it before. Well, for those thick piles of papers that were submitted to us beforehand, we haven't studied them yet. So we are not just looking at this cream. We need to know all the details. So shall I give you 5 minutes? How about ferries? Well, don't just rely on the MTR. Actually, in Annex 2C, we have already given you the relevant information concerning percentages. Now let us look at slide 2. If you want to walk from 1 to 5 and 6, how long is the walk? If you want to walk from 1 to Kowloon MTR station. Now for the whole of WKCD, site is 1.4 km. And if you want to walk from C3 Center to 5 and 6, it's about 1 km. And I would like to supplement, other than walking, there will also be eco buses, and it will be running east and west on the site. This is one of our proposals. Yes, now I can invite members to ask questions. 2 members have raised their hands. Yu Si-wing, or 3 members. Yu Si-wing, Chen Yuan-han, and No Wong, and also Emily Lau.
Yu Si-wing. Thank you, Chairman. I'm more concerned about the pick-up and drop-off points as well as parking problems. Last time I asked about parking of coach buses during the peak hours, and recently we can see that for coach bus parking at Kai Tak, there were some problems. All right, cruise terminals or cruise passengers will be using a lot of coach buses, and during weekends, well, actually many visitors would be going to the cruise terminal as a tourist attractions, and during peak moments there could be up to 10,000 visitors, and at present there is simply no way that they can park their coach buses, and sometimes they will have to go to the public bus stops. As a result, public buses will have to be parked elsewhere. As a result, when passengers board or alight from these buses, sometimes it could be rather dangerous. So we have to treat the WKCD as a tourist spot. It's not just a place or venue where people will go there to appreciate certain performances. So there could be dozens of coach buses going there, dropping off or picking up passengers. And if there is not sufficient parking space in the district itself, then coach buses might be forced to go elsewhere, Tsim Sha Tsui, Jordan, and so on. And that could result in a big mess. And other places can also be congested. So this paper is totally silent about the pick-up and drop-off points. So what's the capacity like? So how many coach buses can be accommodated at any one time? And after they have dropped off or picked up passengers, where can they go to park? Are there any lay-bys or parking areas for coach buses? Will that affect not just the WKCD but also the neighboring areas? Who is to answer this question? Well, in our TIA report, actually we have done some calculations. That is, upon the completion of the entire WKCD, how many coach buses will be required? Well, just for the drop-off points, we will have to have about 25. And after they have dropped off passengers, in fact, there is a holding area for them to park their vehicles there for a short while. And then after the visitors have finished with their sightseeing, they can go back to board the coach buses, and then the coach buses can leave the district. With regard to the pickup points and also coach bus parking areas, there are about 40 plus places. But then according to our calculation, in the WKCD, the entire district will need about 30. So there are about 15 or more spare capacity or spare spaces. With regard to temporary parking, on day one of the commissioning of the WKCD, will that attract more travelers or visitors? Well, at the grade level, for example, at the major performance venue, before the completion of that venue, that could also be used as a temporary holding area or parking area for coach buses. Chairman, I hope that the administration will face up to this issue squarely, because very often when these new tourist attractions are completed, we have to be fully prepared for any eventuality. We may be talking about over 10,000 people from new territories coming here. So we may be talking about several dozen coach buses. So if there are several tens of thousands, then we may be talking about over 100 coach buses coming to the district. Yes, you said that. Yes, the district itself might not be completed within a short while, but then during the transitional period, well, we have to have at least 2 or 3 sites available. So that's the transitional arrangement. Well, for Kai-Tak, they don't have such a contingency plan. That's why coach buses will have to be parked near the area, and passengers will have to cross the roads there. And as a result, that there could be some danger. So in phase 1 and phase 2, well, you will have to be prepared. If there are more than 10,000 people coming into the district, you will have to be sure that it's able to cope. And upon the commissioning of the district, well, after accumulating experience for the first during the first 2 or 3 years, then you can do a bit more. Or else, if you're not prepared for that eventuality, then that would be very difficult for you to adjust to that upon the commissioning of the facilities. Well, people like new facilities, and when new things are coming on stream, then they'll go there. So it's like the Lion Club at Chiu Hang, and for every Sunday, 25 spaces are not enough. So if you do not have up to 250 places available, then it's going to be a big problem. So you will have to think about it. It's not just about visitors from the mainland. Well, when there is a new attraction, people will be attracted to go. Next, Chen Yunhan, Chairman. Well, here we are talking about a minor relaxation of the plot ratio to increase the development intensity. Well, something needs to be done. Well, at the district council, when we meet with them, yes, we do have regular meeting with them. And first we met with Yau Chim Mong district, and most of the district councillors have been very concerned about the road network upon the commissioning of the WKCD. All right, they have a lot of queries and doubts, and with the minor relaxation in the plot ratio, they'll be even more concerned. And initially, when we responded to the request by the Yau Chim Mong district, they said that they'd like to have meetings with us to resolve some of their concerns. So I'd like to know, well, what's the relationship between this meeting and our next meeting with the district council? All right, the district council has its own agenda, and we are a separate tier of government, and I don't think we should mix the two, and it's unimaginable that we should be inviting them to come along at the next meeting. And if they are interested in getting the information, they could have asked the WKCDA and the administration for further details. So let me finish. So I agree that we should have a public hearing inviting them to come along, and then we'll listen to them. We can also ask the colleagues from the authority to come. But then initially, I don't think it's appropriate for us to have a meeting in conjunction with the district council, because we have our own independence, we have our own duties and so on. Well, it has nothing to do with your independence and your role. But then when they filed a complaint with the complaints division of the council, we have asked that that would be included in the agenda of the Joint Subcommittee. That's why I was asking, all right, you suggested that we should have a public hearing. Of course, that's okay. But then when members of the public come to this council to file complaints, it's not about how we exercise our powers. It's about how we deal with this complaint. Because last time I said that they had already filed a complaint with us, and therefore we had to deal with that. Well, I am going for a public hearing. If that is the case, then I suggest that next time, well, in terms of a procedure, we should also invite the district council to come along to give us their views at the public hearing. It's not just the district councils. There are other stakeholders, for example, the tourist sector and also the arts and cultural sector, because they are also very concerned about the traffic impact. And therefore, at the public hearing, we can look at the subject of traffic and transport, and then we can listen to their views on this. All right. Okay. We have the cruise terminal, which is a remarkable example. And shortly after its commissioning, we are already experiencing problems. I think for passengers on board of those cruise liners, when they board or alight the cruises, there have been some problems. And if we are going to increase the plot ratio in the West Kowloon Cultural District, it's going to be a big problem. So I'm also concerned about the commissioning date and also the XRL. If XRL cannot be completed on time, then how can people come here? So in the face of it, how are you going to address these issues? I'm not focusing on one particular location or one particular issue. That will be a waste of your time. So on the present basis, we have already seen the problems in relation to the road network, and also on top of that, we have the XRL problem. So how are you going to address those issues? Thank you. Who is going to answer the question? Is it the consultant or whom? No one dares to answer? Chairman, it shows that they are not prepared. Then I'll be very concerned. So they have been ill prepared. You have not been able to address the questions raised by Ms. Chen. So please go back and think about it. Yes, consultant? Please jot down the question raised by Ms. Chen, and then you answer the question next time. Who is going to answer the question? Have you engaged the wrong company to do the job? All right, this is a real issue before us. Well, as the Transport Department will attempt to answer the question, Chairman. Well, I think concerning the WKCD, in 2009, the TD could already see that in this development area, there would be an extra traffic flow that has to be dealt with. That's why we conducted a study. And in fact, the findings were also passed on to this council. And we have also uploaded the information onto our website. And the thinking is that the roads should go from highways onto the XRL station and also the WKCD as quickly as possible. And just now, when we looked at the road networks, well, you can see that within this area, vehicles can gain access to the West Kowloon Highway very expeditiously. That's why for vehicles going in and coming out, well, most of them would go on to the West Kowloon Highway. And as you can see, as far as the Highways Department is concerned, these projects are being implemented phase by phase. For example, Lin Cheung Road going into Austin Road West. Indeed, under the XRL, we have been working on that. And on the connectivity from Lin Cheung Road to Hoi Po Road and so on, and also from Ma Cheung Road to Western Harbour Crossing and so on. Well, in fact, the Highways Department has already come to the transport panel earlier on to brief members. Later on, they will be going to the PWSC to apply for funding to build these facilities. So concerning these facilities, in fact, with the WKCD coming on stream, we already had the idea that the vehicles can be diverted into the district as soon as possible. And also with regard to the vehicles inside the district and outside the district, there will be a 3-tier structure to segregate them so that the vehicles will be able to be diverted in a very efficient manner. And that was the idea. And after several studies, we've been able to put these into practice. So these networks are already there. And all we have done this time is that while WKCD is now underway, we are trying to relax the plot ratio by 15%. So for the road networks that were already mooted, would they be able to cope? So as I said, we agree with the consultancy's view, because with the increase in the number of vehicles by about 400 per hour, we are not talking about the additional traffic. We are talking about the original load, because prior to that, we were never given the data. Ms. Chen? Well, according to what you said, apparently the Yau Chin Mong District Council does not agree with your original projection, just the original one. They already rejected this. So how can you expect them to agree to the latest one? So I think with 10 people coming, 10 will have different views.
And you're saying that this is going to be considered. I don't know when that will be done. So please address our queries. I understand that there will be another meeting discussing this. So please give us more information next time. It seems that the consultant has never known that Transport Department was thinking this way. So maybe you should have more communication. Mr. Lena Wong, I have talked to the property owners of the superstructures of Kowloon MTR station. They object to this increased plot ratio. I asked why. They say that because this will affect their view, and the greatest concern is traffic. Now I look at this maps. I see all sorts of arrows. So you are looking at it from the WKCD customers. But how about the residents living above Kowloon MTR station and the customers of the elements? Now there are two roads. Now there are two entrances. That is Austin Road West and Jordan Road. When the WKCD is built, how will their accesses be affected? This is question number 1. And if the crowd dispersal of WKCD is not well managed, then the traffic of the Kowloon MTR station will be affected. Now you have to remember that there are not only tourists here. This is also a residential area. There are people living there. So if the MTR station is blocked, then they cannot go home. So that's why they object to this so-called minor relaxation. Well, you told us clearly. Well, you have to tell us clearly that the residents and commercial tenants there will not be affected in the future. And I have to ask the Transport Department another question. Now here you talked about some improvement projects. There is the Central Kowloon route, etc. And how about these few lines here? Now you are sending the people to the underground area of the WKCD. But the crucial point is at Jordan Road, Austin Road, and Canton Road. Now these are old roads and they are relatively narrow. Now we do not have this additional pedestrian flow or vehicular flow, but Canton Road, Austin Road, etc. are already quite congested. Jordan Road, Austin Road, and Canton Road are always full of traffic. So for the Transport Department, what kind of improvement projects will be carried out so as to ensure that the newly increased vehicular flow can be digested? Thank you. Just now, I mentioned that the Highways Department is now planning for a project that is 855TH. A few weeks ago, it was submitted to the Transport Panel, and it will be submitted to the PWSC soon. This project covers Jordan Road, Canton Road, and Canton Road, Austin Road Junction. There will be improvement projects. We hope that the reserve capacity can be increased with this project. After carrying out these improvement projects, the reserve capacity can be increased and it can meet the needs of the year 2013. So can you give us the relevant information? Yes, of course. Now the junctions will be improved, but the roads are not widened. So how can you accommodate more vehicles? Now for Austin Road, Canton Road Junction, the junction will be widened and it will be increased to 5 lanes. That's from Austin Road West, moving towards Austin Road. And on Canton Road, both southbound and northbound, there will be 1 additional lane. So for all the urban road networks in Hong Kong, the most important thing about the traffic flow is not about the number of vehicles to be accommodated. It's actually about the junctions. If the junctions are widened, then the traffic flow can be smoother. Ms. Emily Lau, Chairman, as you said, this is the first time we are looking at this, and I'm taken aback. This is very complicated, and I'm worried. No matter whether it's the consultant or the Transport Department, can they really do a good job? That is, there will not be major traffic congestions in the future. I agree with the chairman that we should hold public hearings as for the people living in those areas and for the stakeholders. So for your design, you should have consulted the stakeholders. So what organizations have you talked to? Now, are there liaison groups? Are there concerned organizations? Would you have constant contact with them? Would you be reporting your progress to them? Is there this kind of arrangement? Transport Department? No one knows how to answer? Well, Chairman, I discovered that if there are too many officials here, none of them would answer questions. Well, let me tell you about our different roles. Well, for the WKCDA now is applying for an increase in plot ratio, and the role of the Transport Department is to look at the TIA, whether is in line and whether is proper, and also we have to give our views to the Town Planning Board. So for the project itself, maybe the Home Affairs Bureau and the WKCDA can answer your question. Just now, Mr. Leung talked about a Highways Department's public works project. So normally they would conduct a consultation and they would go to the TAB. I'm sure they have consulted all the stakeholders, but the stakeholders are not happy. Well, these two officers don't know what the other party has done. Maybe I have misunderstood Ms. Emily Lau's question. Are you asking about the WKCD project or the Highways Department road widening project? Of course, WKCD. Well, the officials don't even know what we are talking about. That's why they are so inefficient. We are talking about the WKCD. It's like a plate of spaghetti. Who's going to do the consultation? Who's going to answer this question? Bonnie or Dr. Chan? Chairman, I cannot hear him. Well, you say that it's a very complicated road network. We have talked to the Highways Department, and WKCDA has taken part in it. We have also talked to the District Council's Transport and Traffic Subcommittee. Only that? Bonnie? The microphone is on. Now, with regard to the whole application for a minor relaxation, and the road network, well, earlier this year we attended a LegCo meeting. We said that we were going to apply for this relaxation. You asked a lot of questions, and in February we went to the District Council. We explained to the District Council. At that time, the consultancy report was not ready yet. So we went to the District Council with the information we had in hand at that time, and they were most concerned about the height, not the traffic. But we also explained about both issues. So we visited the District Council, and then a District Councillor, because the Kowloon MTR station topside development tenants are very concerned. So a district councillor held a meeting, and he has invited the chairman of the owners' corporations of the relevant buildings to the meeting. That was the end of February or early March. And then we filed an application with the Town Planning Board. We tried our best to consult the stakeholders. Of course, we have our own work plans. We have done our consultation. We've heard their views. And the major concern is the height. Of course, they are also concerned about the traffic. And we are the WKCD authority. We have to rely on consultancy companies and the transport department to help us look at the traffic and whether roads can be widened, etc. We have taken all factors into account, and we are progressing steadily. I think the consultant should have done a better job. It seems that when members ask questions today, the consultants are not ready. Is it a waste of money? And we will have to hold a public hearing, and maybe they will have to ask the consultant to write some other reports, and that may cost millions of dollars again. So it's a way to spend taxpayers' money. I don't think height is the only concern. Well, in the future, if there are serious traffic jams here, then major inconvenience will be caused. When I look at this map, I'm really taken aback. So more consultations should be done. Yes, that's a very good opinion. Today we just talked about traffic, but we haven't talked too much about building heights. But you are the consultant and you cannot answer our questions, and you've never expected such questions. You should make improvement. Next time you should give us clearer answers. Ms. Chang? For the people living in the surrounding areas, they are very concerned. I'm sure you understand that. I hope you can talk to them more so that they can have a better understanding of the whole picture. This morning, some residents also emailed me. So the most important thing is not to affect the residents too much. I have a major concern when I look at this map. For example, one night, several performance venues have night shows. Now, all the 9 venues may have night shows at the same time, and then there's a firework displayed at night. And also there are restaurants there, and there are people dating there, shopping there. It's like Chairman Chung Shikan said, the people living in the neighborhood may come to take a stroll in a park, and they may take photos of the night scenery. And Mr. Yu is still here. He says that a lot of coaches would also be coming here. Well, Chairman, and I think that when we are inside WKCD, we will not be able to get out. If you want to go to Meifu, Kwaichong, Chunwan, Shatin, yes, you can go northward. And you can leave by going through the Western Harbour crossing. However, if you want to go to Kowloon, to East Kowloon, not a chance. Only a few narrow roads are left. And Ms. Helena Wong said that, well, for Austin Road, if you want to go to Tsim Sha Tsui, you have to take Austin Road. But Austin Road cannot be widened anymore. It is pretty narrow, and there are buildings on both sides, so no widening can be done. If you want to go to Mongkok and Yau Ma Tei, you have to go via Central Kowloon route. I don't know when Central Kowloon route can be completed. So there are still a lot of problems to be resolved. So everybody's stuck here. But there are a lot of developments in this area. However, well, the road network is also pretty good. However, if there are too many people here, it will be very difficult to disperse them. I'm not too worried about people arriving at WKCD because they do not arrive at the same time. But when they leave WKCD, they may have to leave at the same time.
So people will just try to leave as soon as the show has ended. So within 30 minutes, will all the crowds be dispersed? All right. You might say that unless everything happens simultaneously, that should not have happened. That should not be a problem. But then for all the disasters, is about the occurrence of different things together. Yes, we have already made a projection on a worst case scenario that all the events are ending together simultaneously, or people just leaving at more or less the same time. So for all the access points and also the West Kowloon Highway is a two-way route. So both going in and coming out should not be a problem. And we're talking about a 30-minute interval. It's already a rather long or extended time window. So we expect that the duration should be a bit longer, and we should be able to stagger the timing of people leaving and coming in. So it's already a conservative projection. All right, it's conservative already. All right, any further response? Yes? Any further comments in the first round? Yes, Chairman, we are very concerned about this too. Yes, you have already factored in all the trunk roads that have been completed or are being built, but then we are also concerned about the existing road networks, for example, Austin Road and so on. I think it's already very congested, and the queues are already pretty long. So even without the WKCD coming on stream, yes, some of the road works have had some impacts, but then the roads themselves are already pretty congested. So what choices are there? All right, for people in Hong Kong, I do not necessarily have to go through the WHC. So have you considered how those junctions can be enhanced in order to increase the capacity? You said that the junctions might be widened, but then what about the area following on from there? So it's not just about the function. It's not just about the junction. The entire road might need to be widened. So who can speak on that? Consultant? Have you heard Mr. Chair's comments? Yes, let me try and respond to that. Well, you talk about Austin Road, Jordan Road, as the TD said. There are already some plans that are already underway. Austin Road, Canton Road, some of the road junctions will be improved. And we would also be relying on the Central Kowloon Highway, and one of the main purposes of that highway is to improve the east-west connection. So with that road commissioning, so for people coming into the West Kowloon reclamation, they would be diverted to Kowloon East, and then for the existing Austin Road, the traffic load will be east. And Canton Road, so traffic could also be relieved. So that's the only solution. So it's like the XRL. Once there is any delay, then there would be big problems. Do you have any contingency plan in place? Because for existing roads, we all know that they will continue. And you are talking about some new roads, and then for vehicles going to Kowloon East, that they do not have to go through Austin Road or Jordan Road, and then you'll be making use of this new trunk road. All right, it has taken up a lot of the existing load, because for some of the areas that are already very congested, some of the vehicles will be diverted. So with the commissioning of the highway, that would also increase the traffic flow. So you can only rely on that. Is that the only solution that you have in mind? So you're talking about the Blue Road that is newly built. Yes, but as you have seen, on Austin Road and Jordan Road junction, there would also be widening works. That's the red part. That's the red part here. So it's just about the function. It's just about the junction. But then the road itself is already very congested. If it's easier to go in, then vehicles will be deadlocked there. Because the easier they can go into the road, the more congested it will become. So it's not going to help. So apparently you are saying that improvements have already been made. Consultant, have you looked into that? We have already looked at the government's planning, and we have already made the projection on that basis. But then you're only basing your projection on the data that they supply, but then should you have done your own projection or estimates? Well, we have made the projection on the basis of what they're going to do. Chairman, let me supplement. Well, concerning the CKR or the CK Highway, well, that's the project being carried out by the Highways Department, and in 2021 that should be completed. And if everything goes well, then the entire Kowloon East will see improvement in terms of its traffic. Because if you look at the east-west traffic in Kowloon, in particular, from traffic from Tsim Sha Tsui East, they will have to make use of Lin Cheong Road, Prince Edward Road, and so on. But then, according to our analysis, if with the CK Highway commissioning, that would greatly ease the load on the east-west traffic on Kowloon, because there are 3 lanes on each way, so the capacity is very big. Any further questions in the first round? Alice Mack. Chairman, I can't put up with this anymore. How can you say that with the widening of the junction, then you'll be able to relieve the traffic in West Kowloon? Because if you've been there driving your car, then it's not just about coming out from Route 3 all the way to Canton Road or Austin Road Junction. In fact, where there is congestion, you can be there stuck for 10-20 minutes. So it's just a very small section, and you can be stuck there for 10-20 minutes. And then in the future, yes, the junction might be widened, but then there are still many vehicles. And also, according to what you said, well, the CKR should be able to ease the congestion. So yes, you may be able to ease the traffic congestion to Kowloon East, but then will the widening works within the area be able to help divert the people in West Kowloon? I think we are actually talking at cross purposes. I think these are the junctions which are already very narrow. So they are already very congested, and we are not able to resolve the congestion now. So how can you expect that to be eased in the future? And with the higher intensity in development, then how can that be relieved? So what you said had nothing to do with what we are talking about here. And you said that you are basing your projection on the data supplied by the administration, but then we are talking about the road networks, and upon their commissioning, they are projecting on the flow. But then how about the WKCDA? Have they given you any figures with regard to the crowds to be dispersed after the end of the show? So it's not about the traffic flow upon the commissioning of these road networks, because it's not just a normal study. You're talking about dispersing the crowds from the cultural district, because it's like going to a theme park. How do you disperse the crowds after an event? Because you're talking about dispersing the crowds within half an hour. So they will have to leave within half an hour after the show has ended. So it's not a normal projection. You should have understood it. So it's almost like a theme park. So it's a traffic impact assessment on a theme park. It's not a regular road project. Consultant, maybe I have misunderstood your point. So I was talking about the data that we obtain from the administration. It's about when a road is to be completed and when it can be featured in our assessment. And you talk about dispersing the crowds after a show. In fact, we look at the seating capacity for each and every venue, and then we did simulating models, how many people will be taking a taxi, how many people will be taking public transport, taxis, and so on. And then we make a projection on the 30 minutes after the show as to how many people will be doing what, and then we can make the projection on that basis. So other than the seating capacity of the individual venues, then at its peak, if people are leaving all the venues at the same time, then have you looked at the scenario? And also, the existing traffic situation is already very congested. We are talking about some bottlenecks. What we're most concerned about is within that 30-minute time window, if everybody is leaving at the same time, then what will happen? What will be considering these situations? For example, within the WKCD, what about those people leaving the commercial facilities and so on? For the other regular traffic, we have already taken that on board. All right, when shows end, yes, we have already taken into account the traffic outside the district, but then those should not have been the peak hours, because during the end of the show, we are talking about 10 to 11 p.m. and outside the district, the traffic flow should be lower. So that's the basis for a projection. All right, any further questions in the first round? Well, let me ask a question. Well, on exit 5 and 6, yes, the vehicles would be taken away from the district. That's very nice. For example, if you go to the Hong Kong Island, there is another road. You can go via the WHC. What if there is an accident? Are there any alternative routes going to the WHC, or do they have to go back to the CHT or the Cross Harbour Tunnel? So apparently that's the only access. Once it's disconnected, then it's broken. All right, from the WHC, yes, of course, the most expeditious way is in the TD's study. We will be using the Nga Cheong Road elevated section, and then there is a direct access to the WHC. And even if there is an accident, they can make a circular route to Lin Cheong Road, and then they can then go back to the WHC. Of course, it's a rather convoluted route. But then where can we find that? Where can we find the alternative route? Sorry, speaker's not coming through. All right, if you look at C1, for the elevated section from Nga Cheong Road coming down, that's where the arrow is. And then if there is an accident or congestion, then along the existing Lin Cheong Road, they can make a detour and then come back down. So it's not just one way, all right? You will then be adding to the burden on the other roads, because there are other roads going to other districts. Then have you taken that into account? How about the additional load? So everything looks very rosy. So there are different access roads. But what if there is an accident or incident? Let's say if there is any suspension of service by the MTRC, then how can people be dispersed? So are there any ways that you can disperse the crowds? What if there is a false report of a bomb? You will have to think about those. This is a major district, because apparently every road is deadlocked or dead-ended. You will have to come up with an alternative options. And if everybody goes down the same route, then what happens? The paper is silent. And what if there is a disaster? Let's say the MTRCL is not functioning. Well, last month there was a downpour, and as a result they had to close the gate, and the service was suspended. So how about the spectators and so on? Do they have to camp in the WKCD? Have you thought about this? No. Well, people can just make a phone call, and then the whole place can be paralyzed. Have you thought about this? Next, please. Chen Yunhan. Chairman, I'm still concerned about this. All right, I tried to look at it from the WKCD's perspective, and I tried to put myself in the shoes of the consultant. All right, on top of the existing measures, they will have to come up with additional measures to resolve the problem. Well, inherently, it's a big problem already. All right, district councillors are already very concerned. All right, you have additional facilities. Yes, that might be very desirable, but then congenitally, you are already having inadequate facilities. Well, you might think that I'm making life difficult for you. So am I trying to make life difficult for you? Just think carefully about that. And also, if that should happen, given the fact that you are already inherently deprived, but can something be done about this? For example, in Kwun Tong, they have a very nice site, but then because of the road network, well, from Clearwater Bay Road is very congested. That's why they are reluctant to put up more buildings there or units there. So it's the site above Sao Mau Ping. There is a vacant site, so it's been left vacant. So could it be that because of the inherent inadequacy, you would be scaling down the performance venue so that you can reduce the number of people there? So it's like the TD giving advice to the Highways Department and the Development Bureau so that they would not be putting up or building so many units. So that's the usual approach adopted by the administration. So, consultant, are you embarrassed? And second, Bonnie, what's going to be done about it? So you try to place fewer people in WKCD. Is that the case?
Well, the people are very worried. So at the end of the day, will you cut the number of performance and cultural venues so that there would not be so many people there? Bonnie? Or Dr. Chen? Now the consultant has made assessments. It has looked at all the junctions. And if the plot ratio is increased a little bit, the standards can still be met. As to whether the number of arts and cultural venues should be reduced, well, actually, we are not launching all these facilities in one batch. They are completed one by one. So can the scale be reduced? Well, because we are not completing all the venues in one go, so there would not be a problem. So can you downscale that? This may be a conspiracy theory. Well, this is your view. See how they respond. Ms. Bonnie Wong. Now, if we are not going to build all the facilities, the only reason would be a shortage of funds. So for the basement facilities, if the government does not give you money, then you will not build them, right? Well, the underground facilities are very important. Now, there are 23 hectares of public space above ground, and you want the public to enjoy this beautiful site. So all the traffic would have to be put underground. If suddenly you say that there will be no underground facilities and all the traffic would have to put above ground, then we would have to do all the assessments again. And as Dr. Chen said just now, these cultural and arts facilities will be completed in batches. So the traffic situation would not be that bad, but of course we have to think about the worst case scenario. For example, a building collapsing or earthquake. But if we are so scared and the whole project cannot go ahead, we are not talking about those disasters. We are just talking about the MTR not running. Well, this can happen anytime. I don't want to waste people's time. Now, if there's a traffic accident, what will happen? Oh, it's very easy. Just a crazy man can call you saying that has put a bomb at the MTR station, that the whole MTR system would go down. So how did you hire such a consultancy company? Let's not talk about tsunami or earthquake. I don't remember what I was talking about. Well, you are saying that unless there's a shortage of funds, then you would cut down on the arts and cultural facilities. You are telling the Home Affairs Bureau not to cut the funding, right? So the project just doesn't start today. We have been planning for this for a long time. So for all the traffic arrangements and road facilities, we have been talking to the Highways Department for a long time. They will be adding different roads and making improvements so as to manage the future situation. So this just not start today. We have been talking about this for a long time, and this has been evolving. The whole plan has been evolving. As members said, we have to report to you on the progress of the project. I'm worried that this will become a white elephant. No, this should not happen. Mr. Ma Fong Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. I'm a board member of the WKCD, and maybe I understand this situation a bit more. I've been listening today, and I have this feeling. Just now, Mr. Yu Suing asked a very valid question. That is, how to take care of the visitors. The reply really worried me, in particular when it comes to tour groups. Now the SAR government has to face this problem squarely. That is how to tackle the influx of tourists from the mainland. And if you have just 50 coach parking spaces, that would not be enough. Well, actually, I agree that the plot ratio should be increased, but there is one thing important. That is one thing very important, that you have to solve the traffic problem first. If you only have 50 coach parking spaces, what's the number of the coach parking spaces? 40 plus. You say that the time slots would be staggered. No matter what, the tourists will come in the daytime, and also school students would come to visit the WKCD. There will also be other organizations visiting the site. So if you only have around 50 coach parking spaces, that will definitely not be enough. I don't know what is enough. Maybe the tourism sector can give us some input, but this is something you have to consider seriously. And also for crowd dispersal, well, in the daytime you have offices there, and at night time there are catering facilities. I'm not worried about the shows ending. You have a dozen venues, and if all the shows at the same time, it's not likely. But I'm worried about the spectators coming to the venues for their shows. I think all the shows may start at more or less the same time, and they have to come after work. So it's always about the same time. Now for the cultural center, now if there is a major event at Intercontinental Hotel, for example, a major wedding banquet, then the whole area will be jammed. So in the future, would also be like that for WKCD at around 7 or 7:30. There will be a lot of people arriving at WKCD. And people are rushing to the performance venues, and some of them are going to the restaurants there, or to banquets there. So I think this is the major problem. So when the shows end, I don't think it's such a big problem. People can wait for 5 or 10 minutes, and people would have the patience. So I think the problem lies with the transport department. Only one new road will be added. That is the Central Kowloon route. And you will also be using some reserve capacity of the Western Harbour crossing. But as for the other roads, I think many of them are saturated already. You have different percentages for different roads. For example, 47% for West Kowloon Highway and another percent for the Western Harbour crossing. So how do you come up with all these percentages? Is it scientific? Now, if the distribution is good and if the estimation is correct, there may not be a problem, but I'm worried that you do not have enough roads to meet the needs of the people. And what if all the people come to the shows at more or less the same time? So any response? With regard to Mr. Ma's questions, that is about the vehicles going in and out of the WKCD and the distribution. Now we have a scientific model. We cut Hong Kong into hundreds of small parts, and then we make the calculation. There is a traffic model doing this, and then we will make projections concerning the future routes of coming to the WKCD. This model has been in use in Hong Kong for quite a long time and is pretty accurate. Now, because for the trunk roads, well, the major road will be the West Kowloon Highway. So our thinking is that most of the vehicles should make use of the West Kowloon Highway. And there are some new roads that will be connected to the highway. And then on the highway, you can go through the new Lin Cheung Road and then go to Austin Road, etc. So this can also divert the traffic. For the existing roads in this district, yes, it's unlikely that they can be widened because there are buildings on both sides. So we are trying to divert the vehicles onto other routes. So we agree with the consultants on the diversions. There are major routes diverting these vehicles in the future. Now, we don't have enough time, so we will lengthen this meeting by 15 minutes. So I hope the Transport Department can talk to the LCSD. Now, when there are shows at the cultural center, where do the spectators come from? Do they mainly come from the Hong Kong Island or what? Don't just look at the population of a certain district. I think you need to carry out such a study, otherwise this can never be accurate. Ms. Helena Wong. Chairman, what we are most worried about now is this. We hope that the Transport Department can tell us more. Now in the future there will be XRL, there will be WKCD. So in this area, will the traffic situation be better? Will it be like what it is today, or will it be very congested? Because at the moment the traffic situation here is not that good. At Austin Road is already quite jammed. I understand that these roads cannot be widened. So what you can do is to do something at the WKCD, but the vehicles, well, in the future, if there are so many vehicles coming in and out of the WKCD, what can be done? Because they will all be packed at Austin Road and Canton Road, and the whole area will be paralyzed. Now, of course, if you are not going into this area, you can go on to West Kowloon Highway. So the WKCD will attract many more vehicles to this area. As you know, Austin Road, there are 2 lanes on either direction, and one lane is always occupied by lorries unloading. So there's only one lane left on one side. So what a solution will you have? I would like to thank Ms. Wong for her understanding. She understands that, well, Austin Road, due to the physical restrictions, so we cannot do anything to widen it. However, from traffic management point of view, we can do something. For example, controlling the traffic signals, or at the junctions, we can enhance the management, etc. So these are possible solutions. But in the long run, if the Austin Road congestion problem is to be resolved, we have to solve the traffic flow problem of East and West Kowloon. So if some vehicles do not have to go into these old districts, they can take the West Kowloon Highway. Well, we carry out this TIA by taking the traffic generation of the WKCD into account,
so that the traffic can go in and out of the WKCD more easily. Yes, I'd like to ask a follow-up. How about Austin Road? Have you considered providing an underpass, is it possible to go underground? Well, in 2009, in our traffic study, indeed there was an underpass from Canton Road crossing over to Austin Road, but then to build this underpass, the existing Tsim Sha Tsui fire service station will have to be relocated before that underpass can be built. So, as an interim measure, we will be widening the Austin Road and Canton Road junction. And as I just said, the Highways Department will be coming to this council for funding in order to carry out this project. Thank you. Next, Ann Chiang. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to traffic flow in and out of the district, so that's a projection into 2031. And in your projection, I can see that during the morning peak hours, you expect that, in and out of the area, you're talking about 2,000 PCU, and then during the evening peak, there will be about 4,000. So the number will be doubled, but then in 2030, but then even now, the traffic is already quite heavy because you have quite a few residential blocks there, and we are talking about some 6,000 parking spaces in those developments. In other words, many people are driving day in, day out, and during the morning and evening rush hours, there will be more than 2,000 PCUs, let alone the commissioning of the XRL. Well, I don't know how many vehicles will be coming out from the ICC. So you might be talking about 10,000 plus vehicles. Well, let's assume that not all of them will be coming out at the same time. Just 1/4 of them will amount to 2,000. On top of that, when all the venues are commissioned, I'll be very worried, because if you look at the HKCEC, if there is a function, all right, near the HKCEC, there aren't that many residential developments, but then so long as there is a major function, it will already be very congested. It can be congested all the way and spill over to the trunk roads far away. So you will have to think about those. With so many venues being placed side by side, well, people should not drive there in the first place. You should discourage people from driving. Yes, what you're doing is you're just going to a concert. So please don't try to be a nice guy and allow people to drive. At least if they had known that they should not be driving, and then they'll take public transport, they'll take the MTRC, or if they come, they can also take shuttle buses, or they can take a minibus or taxis and so on. That might be better. So I suspect that the traffic situation would be rather appalling. Well, right now, on Canton Road and Austin Road, they are already very congested. So what I can fathom in my mind is, with the commissioning of all the facilities, when people go in, I dare not think about the congestion that might come after. Well, you might have some modeling, let's say, well, what about what's going to happen to the signals and so on when the vehicles come out? So you can have all the simulated models, and then you'll be able to see how congested that will become. Then we can be more rational in making this decision. Thank you. All right, that's your personal comment. Any response? If not, then next is a comment. To ask people not to drive as far as possible. Yes, we might be doing that. So we'll encourage more people to use public transport. As to how the modeling is done, we'll defer to the consultant. If there are high-end performances, if a ticket already costs $10,000, then they'll be putting on evening dress and so on. So how can you expect them to take public transport? Well, I forgot to mention this point. Well, there is also sea traffic. So marine access can be one of the ways, because looking at the layout plan, people can come here by marine transport, but then we haven't really looked into that seriously. We also have to talk to different departments. Indeed, we have already taken this up with the Harbourfront Commission, and also we have looked at people responsible for enforcing the protection of the harbour ordinance. So if there is marine access, then that would help. That would ease the situation in terms of dispersing the crowds. We have already made that point earlier. Well, because on the mainland, they have boats everywhere. They have rivers and streams everywhere. So you will have to think about it. It's very simple. Well, you don't have to do any reclamation at all. All you need to do is to provide ferry or other marine access. All right. In the WKCD, for the time being, we don't have many people going there. And if there are crowds, you will have to think about how you can disperse the crowds. I hope that the consultant can talk to the tourism sector. So initially, how many facilities will be commissioned and how many pick-up and drop-off points will there be? How many parking spaces are there? And then in the mid-term or medium term, how many more will be provided? And then in the long term, what are the projections? So if that can be done, then in the transitional period, which just now you made a very good point, that is in any event, some of the construction sites will have space available, so you can have some temporary parking or holding area for them. So we will have to think about those instead of waiting till something like what is happening at Kai Tak happens. So once these problems emerge, I don't think people will find it acceptable. So the consultant will have to talk to the tourism sector to see how things can be resolved. And if you are not able to resolve those problems, then maybe you will have to think about how you can divert the traffic. So you should not be stopping people from going there. That's not a solution at all. Yes, consultant, please look into that. Because indeed, on the third day of the Chinese New Year, well, when people try to go to the Che Gong Temple in Sha Tin, is quite a big problem. So everybody will try to go there. Even locals will try to go there. So how are you going to divert the traffic? You will really have to think about this. Anyone else? If not, as Emily Lau just said, there is a lot of room for improvement in the paper. So please see how you can improve it. You have to think about the solutions. So it's, well, all right, there might be some incidents, power cut and so on, and if there is any traffic accident, then very often there will be a tailback all the way to very far away from the scene. So you will have to come up with contingency measures. Well, originally in July, we had an item to look at what Ms. Helena Wong is most concerned about. That is about connectivity with the neighboring district. You might say that, all right, within our district, traffic has been very smooth, but then if it's congested as soon as you come out from the district, then there could also be tailback from outside the area. So in July, if we can resume our subcommittee meeting, then we will be discussing that in July. All right, things have been resolved. Okay, so before July, I'd like to have a public hearing on the traffic impact, because apparently it's going to be a big problem. The more we look into that, the more problems we identify. So the tourism sector, the arts and cultural sector, the owners incorporated, district councillors, whoever is interested, we will be inviting them to come along, because we'll be looking at the traffic and transport issue, because it's going to affect the entire district, and everybody there will be affected. So please do come again to listen to the views, and then I hope that you can be more accurate in your projections. Transport Department, you will have to talk to the LCSD to look at how they conduct the survey, because people are coming here for a specific reason. They are not commuters. You will have to find out who the audience is, where they're from. I don't think I think there might be many people from the Hong Kong Island. Yes, I support your proposal to have this public hearing on the traffic impact. All right, so there is no need for any further meeting. But then for the main meeting, that will have to be rescheduled. Initially, it was scheduled for the 8th of May, but then we will have to reschedule it to the 28th of May because the administration is not able to have the paper ready. So 28th of May, 8:30. Thank you. Transport Department, can you have the colleague responsible for the entire traffic network, not just in West Kowloon, but also in the Kowloon region? So can he or she come along as well next time, either the Assistant Commissioner or the person responsible for the entire West Kowloon road network, or else you won't be able to take all the questions. Thank you.